Hi, I'm Liz, and I was 30 weeks pregnant when the government announced that we were going into lockdown. So, to be expecting a baby during a pandemic was really scary. I think your emotions are already heightened being pregnant, and you're obviously very hormonal. So, when it was initially announced, your first thoughts are, what does that mean? Obviously, you're not going to be able to see your family. No one knew how long it was going to last. I couldn't go back to work, which was a massive shock because I wasn't ready to leave. And then luckily I was able to work from home. So I still had contact with everybody, but the thought of not going back into the office was really scary. And as it turns out now, I won't be back until March next year. But the biggest worry was obviously visitors at the hospital. I think that was my immediate concern. I was lucky enough to have already had my scans. So Jordan, my husband, had already been to my 12-week scan and my 20-week scan. So we were really lucky in that aspect. So he'd not missed out on any of that. I still had another 2 growth scans. And obviously going on your own was really daunting, but you were fine once you were in the hospital. I think you didn't even realise what was going on outside in a way. Obviously everybody wearing masks was a lot different, and that was all really that you could see. Our midwife appointments stayed the same. I still had the same midwife throughout all of it. So when we went to see her, she had all PPE on and that was fine as well. I completely understand why they were doing it. It didn't bother me at all. So nothing changed in terms of the care. I think that was just as good as it would have been had we not been in the middle of a pandemic. I found the Leeds Maternity Facebook page really helpful, and the Leeds Maternity e-midwife page really helpful, and they put all the information up because obviously there's always a lot of hearsay during these times, and it was nice to have a trusted source that you could go to and ask questions. And I messaged the e-midwives a couple of times for information, and they sent the answers back, which was so helpful. So I think that they were really beneficial. The worst part was just finding out that your birth partner could only be there for either active labour or I was having a C-section, so he was able to be there during that, and then until he moved to the postnatal ward. So that was obviously the worst part for me. I already have a little girl, and I had a C-section with her, so I know how hard it was afterwards, and I really couldn't imagine my husband not being there. So the rest of the time I just spent hoping that the visitation rules had changed, but obviously it got to a point where I realised that wasn't going to happen. So I just had to be really brave, and you just have to get on with it. I think during the whole experience, the care I received was great. I couldn't have asked for any more help. Being on the postnatal ward on my own afterwards, the midwives were amazing. They obviously knew how upset everybody was. They could definitely tell how upset I was when I arrived, having Jordan had just left, and I was really upset. But they did as much as they possibly could. They were there to help with everything you needed. Probably the one worst thing was my bed didn't have a buzzer that worked, so I had a bell. But if that's the only thing out of the whole situation that was bad, then there's nothing really to complain about. In terms of if there was anything anyone could have done any better, I don't really think there was. The only thing for me personally was I'd originally asked to give birth at St James's, and then when I got the appointment through for my elective C-section, it was at the LGI, and there was no explanation as to why. I didn't question it because I know how busy the hospitals were at the time, and I didn't want to be making a fuss or anything, so we just went with it. I guess a hospital's a hospital, you're going to get the same care anyway, so I just went with it. But I think had there not been this going on, I would have questioned that a bit more. This been my second birth. There wasn't really that big a difference to the first one. Once you were in hospital, it was just like being in a bubble, and you weren't really aware of what was going on in the outside world. And obviously, all your attention is on your newborn baby, so you don't really have time to think about anything else. I'd like to thank all the staff and the midwives. They were absolutely amazing, and I can't imagine it's an easy time for them at the moment either. But everybody just did as much as they possibly could, and I'm really pleased with the treatment that we received.
Hi, my name's Jordan. My experience was slightly different to my previous time with my wife giving birth. I wasn't able to support my wife in going to appointments. I wasn't able to hold her hand through the majority of this when she needed me the most. And it was rather difficult, I won't lie. I felt helpless in the sense that I couldn't be there for her. I was previously in the birth from my previous daughter, and I was able to be there after and support and do everything that was needed to be done. This time around, obviously, I wasn't able to stay after, which made it rather difficult for me having to return home. I understood, I understand and understood why it was needed, but it was difficult. I won't lie, and I um, can only give credit where it's due to the NHS and the people at the LGI who helped my wife through that time.